What's up, everyone? It is your girl, Beauty 87 here, aka Grace, and it's time for another Why You Don't Need video. I know I've been coming out with them pretty frequently lately, but I just feel like a lot of the stuff is like repeat stuff, and you have stuff in similar in your collection, so I don't want you out here spending these coins when you don't have to, girl. So this episode is on, I mean, y'all read the title, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This is on the new Odensey collection. Y'all know they got the stone palette and the gem palette. I don't know the exact names. I think it's jewels and gems and then stones and gems or something like that. But I'm like, they got so many palettes in their collection that's similar, and we have other palettes that already have that's similar to them. So let me get my phone handy, you know, put up these pictures so we can talk about why you don't need bodies, girl. Because you don't need bodies. So without further ado, let me get into it, girl. Pull up this picture real quick. So I screenshotted the pictures of the palettes, what was it? I think last week? Well, no, I screenshotted pictures of the palettes as soon as they started talking about them. I need to get better pictures of, but let me. Okay, so we're gonna start off with the green, because y'all know I got plenty of the ones that look like the green one. So I figured I'd start off with that one. Here's what she looks like, honey. And I'm like, look, I don't need this. You don't need this. We don't need this. Look at this. It's like one peach shade and a whole bunch of like greens. And the first thing I thought of, I'm like, didn't y'all make a palette like this with Angie? Like, why do I need to buy this separate palette? They literally made this palette with Angie. Like, covering it up. What do you see? I see the same colors you just came up with. You added like a peachy shade. If I got Angie's palette, why do I need this green palette? Like, I don't have blacks in other parts of my collection. Some people literally own that shade from Natasha Denona that's called the Black is Black. So why do I need to buy this palette if half of Angie's palette is this palette? See, she got the bright green shimmer. She got her, this shade right here. She got this light shade. Her shades are more yellowish and greenish, but it's like, I just cover that up and you already have the green palette. Like, why do I need to buy the green palette? Angie made the green palette. And y'all just added some stuff. And even like the bottom part of this somewhat looks like the newer palette they have. Let me show it real quick. Because I'm like, why did I need it? Why do I need it? See, look at the one at the bottom. Angie's palette has those pinks in it, those dark colors. The only thing Angie's palette doesn't have is the purples and the blues. So it's like, if you don't care about the purples and the blues, you already have this palette if you own Angie's palette. Because she has the pinks, she has those deeper tones, and then she has the greens at the top. So why do you need to buy this palette unless you just really like Odensey? I mean, I bought both of them because I really like the brand and to like give you all tutorials and whatnot for those of you all who are interested in the palettes. But it's like, we don't really need this palette. You got the top half right here, the green palette they're talking about right there in Angie's palette. And then you got the other part in Angie's palette. It just has blues and purples to it. That's the only difference. So if you have Angie's palette, you don't even need that palette. I can literally give y'all a tutorial and why you don't need with just Angie's palette alone. Now, I'm not going to have the blues and the purples that we just talked about, but I literally have everything else. Minus the black shade. I have everything else. And it's like, if I want to be petty about it, I can use this dark burgundy shade for it to be my darker outer V shade. Or just use this dark green and make a whole little green moment up here. Or just use this green, because it's like, if you have Angie's palette, you don't even need to buy that. Like, it doesn't really serve a purpose. Then I thought about the Christmas Eve palette. So if you wanted those blues and whatnot, if you already have this palette, you have those blues and purples that's missing out Angie's palette. So with this palette and Angie's palette, I feel like you have both those palettes. See, you got the blues and the purples that's lacking out of Angie's palette with the pinks and that dark burgundy shade. And then you have the greens in here. You still have a couple of green and cool tone shades in here that will go nicely with this one. So if you have both these palettes, you don't really need to buy that palette at all. There's no purpose behind buying either one of those. So I wanted to come on here and show y'all. I'm like, if you got these palettes, you don't need it. And even in that Christmas palette, look at it. Like, it's somewhat similar to it too. Because it has that black in it that's missing from the other one. They just did reds instead of pinks and blues here, but again, covers up. It's just like Angie's palette. You got all those greens and all that. So it's like, are people running out of creativity? Because it's like, I just showed you two different palettes from this same brand. It's trying to sell you a whole dedicated green palette, and I just covered it up, and you got two green palettes. Do you really need it? No, you don't. Angie's palette pretty much covers all that palette minus the blues, and then we covered up this palette and you had all those same greens. So you getting greens from them, this will be the third time over. You don't really need it. I mean, if it makes you feel better and you want to buy it, then I'm not trying to judge. I'm just trying to help you save money, because it's like, and y'all know I got plenty of green palettes. So I got so many more green palettes to show you besides just these, but I started with these. So I got my green palette, what is this? The khaki palette. khaki neutrals from Dior from the holiday. Again, greens. Now, it doesn't have the bright greens. This is more muted green for everyday people. And if you like luxury formulas, I feel like this was a pretty decent luxury formula, which I wasn't expecting because I don't know. I don't really know Dior for eyeshadow. So it comes with one of those cream shades, so you can use the eyeshadow primer. I personally don't like them, but you know, this palette worked pretty well in my personal opinion. If I remember my review, I remember telling y'all that. Then you have the child palette from Colourpop. If you just want the green palette, you can pick up the child. Now, oh, y'all, my whole shade just fell out on my feet. I don't know what's going on lately. All my palettes like falling and dropping and stuff is happening. Like, this is like the 3rd or 4th time tonight something like this has happened. I was borrowed one of my friend's palettes to show y'all another video and it fell out. This shade just fell out. I swear all my palettes are just acting up and stuff is falling out. I don't know what's going on. And that was of course the duochrome flipping shade that fell out, of course. And I gotta buy another one of these. I'm so tired of having to buy palettes, y'all. I swear. I'm trying to decide if I'm even gonna buy that shade or if I'll just replace it with something else, because like I do have the Sage Today palette as well, so I'll probably just wait till the sale comes to buy that because I don't really use those palettes that often. But again, it's another green palette. Like, you don't keep needing to buy all these green palettes. This is another green palette from Colourpop that is still affordable. Now, you're not gonna get those bright shades. These greens are more muted shades, so if you wanted a brighter one, then I figured you would go for Angie's or like the holiday palette from Odenseyejewels. But again, both those palettes are from the same brand, but they're trying to get you to buy more palettes. Like, stop using the same color story and maybe I'll be interested in buying more. But it's like, I'm not going to keep buying the color story from you 40 times over. Next, I have the Just My Luck. Again, this is a good alternative for that palette as well because it comes with this greenish shade like that. It has a darker row here. It has this lighter row of shimmers in the middle, and it has this row. I did take a couple of shades out of mine, so mine didn't look the traditional way it does, but the Mary Jane shade is an original shade in there, and I noticed that the brighter green in there was something that attracted my eye, and I figured it might attract yours, so I wanted to make sure you saw. Pull out your Just My Luck palette, girl. It has a darker shade right here. It has this green right here. It has that bright green right there. And those are all the shades that attracted my eye personally. So I felt like that would be a good, you know, shade right there. So that's what she's looking like. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's lovely. And that's another reason you don't need it. Now, I just showed you 3 affordable green palettes and 2 palettes that had green in them from the same brand. It's like, who finna be out here keep buying this stuff? Next, I have the Earth palette from, what is it? Milk Cosmetics. I don't know when this video is going to go up, but they would have 50% off this palette. 2, the formula is okay. It's not exceptional. And this one has more warm and cool tones. So if you're a person who likes both, I figure you would like this one because you're getting some warmth over here at the bottom, but you're still getting like those greenish, grungy, and yellow shades. Now, this doesn't have nearly as much green as the other palettes I've shown you. So I can understand this not necessarily being your cup of tea if you wanted a true, like, somewhat monochromatic-ish green palette with lots of different, like, tones of greens in it. I would say get the Just My Luck, or like I said, if you already have the other 2 palettes, you don't need it. What's the next palette I have? Y'all, I got so many green palettes, it's insane. Next, I have the Gemini palette. If you have the Gemini palette, I feel like you have a similar color story. The only thing is, this gives you a lot more neutral than it does green, so I can understand you not necessarily being excited about this. Plus, it doesn't have the bright green in it, but it does have the black. It does have some of the neutral tones that palette has, and it does have some greens. It just doesn't have the variety of greens that are in that palette that I figured people might prefer, because Melt has a tendency to do a lot of dark shades, so it's a lot of depth going on in this one and not necessarily as much brightness as the other one might be doing. I only got a couple green palettes left, and then the rest of the palettes are like for the second palette I just showed you to start off with. So I have the Feet on the Ground palette by Mitchell. Again, it has lots of greens in it. Now, it doesn't have that bright green. Well, it has a somewhat bright green in it. It has this bright green, and then this somewhat bright green, and then it has a couple of green tones in here, not a lot. It has a lot of different mixtures of colors though, and I felt like this shade and this shade and this shade could give you a little bit of that other palette as well. Now, this orange, sorry, this more turquoise shade isn't gonna be the same as the shades in the, what is it, in the pinkish purpley palette, the more muted mauvey purple palette. But I feel like overall this could be a good alternative possibly, and I know this palette is on sale a lot on Beauty Bay, so I figured you might be interested, you might not, but I'm here, you're here, we're all here, y'all know the drill. So I was just like, okay, cool. I'm still mad that shade fell out though, because I'm telling y'all, this is like the 3rd shade that's falling out on me tonight. I'm getting like annoyed. Anyway, next palette we have to go to. This is the last one I have before I just start talking about the purple palette. I feel like this could be a good combination alternative palette. Now, keep in mind the greens in this palette are not exact, but and like a lot of the colors in here aren't exact. Like the purple is missing out of it for the the more mauve tone palette, and then the greens in here are the same tones of greens as in that palette. But I felt like if you are a person who doesn't use color that often, but you wanted the same kind of vibe of both those palettes without paying the 32 bucks a piece, because that can get expensive, you might like this Whistler Snow Lodge palette, because when you think about it, it had these reddish tone shades that if you blend them out lightly might look similar to the pinkyish ones with the right hand. This shifts to a reddish pinkish type shade, and then you have the blues. You just missing the purples and the pinks. They're replaced with reds, and then you have the mints here, and then the like neutralish type shades, and it's more mint than it is like a traditional green, if you will. But I felt like it would be a good alternative again if you're just trying to fake the feel of the color story to a certain extent, and you already own this in your collection. You already have the mints and you already have the neutral tones that come in that palette right here. So this little section would be the I think it's called Stones and Gems palette, and then this section here would be more of the Jewels and Gems palette, and it would just be replaced with red instead of purple and pink. But I think it's a good alternative if you don't want to spend any money and kind of fake the feels of the palette. So sounds good to me. Okay, so the rest of them we're just gonna be faking the second palette that I showed you all. Let me see if this still pulled up. Yeah, this one right here. So the second one would just be faking for this palette. As you see what I'm saying, it has a couple of pinks, it has a couple of purples, and it has some blues. So I felt like the reds could replace like the pinks, if you will, and then it's just no purples and blues. That's why I picked the Whistler Snow Lodge. Now we're gonna get into some other palettes. Now, I feel like the Dollhouse palette from Blend Bunny Cosmetics would be a good alternative to that palette, just because it has a lot, literally a lot of those exact same. You have your neutral tones right here. You have your blues and purples. You have some more neutralish shades. You have your pinks, and then you have a cool tone row right here. So you have warm tone, cool tone, and then all the shades that are in that palette in this palette. So I'm actually going to be doing a look with this one in the why you don't need video, because I feel like if you have this palette, you don't need that palette because it has a lot of similar tones. Now it doesn't have the dusty, unique blue matte shade that they put in there, but I feel like all these other shades could work out possibly for that palette. So I'm gonna go ahead with that one for the video. Next I have the Astro Pink palette from Kaleidos. Now I know this one isn't exact by any means. I just feel like it had some of the similar colors. Like it has a blue purple shifting shadow. The black isn't really in the other palette, but it's in the green palette, and then you have these 2 or 3 mauve-ish shades that I feel like could work nicely. So I just wanted to show all the different palettes I had in my collection that I felt like would work nicely. Next, I have my Troublemaker palette. Y'all know I recreated this one to a certain extent. So, with another shade here with the red ones, I remember correctly. And then I think I took one other shade out here. Don't quote me. It might have just been the red, but I feel like this gives similar vibes of that as well. Again, it doesn't have the blue. It has gray instead of the blue. But I feel like a lot of the tones in here could be similar and comparable. And I know they just got this one back in stock, if I remember correctly, along with the Aurora Struck and some other stuff. I redid my Pretty Please palette, but again, I feel like it's one that could be a good alternative as well. So I'll go ahead and show that one. This is what she looks like. Again, y'all know I changed this around. I put this shade in here, and I think I took one of the shades out of here that was like pressed glitter, I believe, and put a shimmer in instead. But this is what she looks like. I know she doesn't look exact. I just, like I said, I pulled everything I felt like looked similar. Next, I have the Rose Quartz palette. I feel like this is a really nice one as well. Now it doesn't have, again, it doesn't have the blue shades to it, but it has the purples, and then it has the pinks, and it has a little bit of neutral section here. So I feel like this could be a good alternative for you. Again, if you don't care about the blues, I feel like if you have a mauve tone palette in your collection, it's not even necessary to look at this. The last one, I literally just got this in the mail today. This is Smoky Rose. I heard my girl Karen Harris raving about how nice the formula was on it, and it is my kind of color story when I saw it. So I found it on Macari for like, I think $15 or something like that. So I went ahead and purchased it. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, they did more reddish Valentine-ish looking tones, and then they did a more cool toned smoky mauve-ish type section over here. So I'm anxious to try this out and see how it works. I was going to use this, but when I looked at the Dollhouse and saw how similar it was, I was like, there's no way I can't use the Dollhouse. So I'm gonna go ahead and use Angie's palette, although Angie's palette and the Christmas palette were limited edition, so they technically don't have them anymore. I feel like I could use either or though, and it won't really matter. I might combine both of them depending on what kind of colors I need. But my point is they're both from Odensey, and I already have them in my collection, so why would I go ahead and, you know, like, buy these palettes? So without further ado, I will be pulling from, I might pull from both the palettes, I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like the green in here is deeper in here, but like some of the greens in here I'm going to use too. So I'll probably use greens from both of these palettes to create a look. And then that way, if you have either one of the palettes, you can see how both the greens work. I'll tell you what I did with each one as I normally do. And then we're going to reach into the dollhouse to make a look that's really similar to the, I think it's Jewels and Gems palette. And the green is the Stone and Gems. So let me zoom you on real quick and cute like girl after I sat here for 20 minutes talking about all the other stuff. If you're curious what's on the eyes right now, you've already seen this video before you saw the video I'm talking about now. This is the new Seahorse palette from Adept Cosmetics. Mine showed up Saturday. It wasn't supposed to show up till Monday, but it showed up today, and I told the Lord thank you. So I filmed this video for y'all real quick and cute like, and you'll see this in the morning. I'm gonna go off camera, get my life in order, and then I'm gonna start off with the green eye, and I'll end off with my favorite kind of tones, which are the neutral tones. So I'll be right back. Okay, girl? Okay. So if y'all can't tell, I was feeling real extra with the eyeliner today, so this is what I came up with for this eye. So I just dipped between both palettes. So I used this one, this one, this one, and this one in Angie's palette for this green look. And then I used this one, and this one in the Christmas palette for this look. Oh, I'm sorry. And the shade Gingerbread, because that's one of them closest to the other palette, if you all remember. Let me go ahead and show you just to remind you what the tones look like. So these are what the tones look like. As you can see, it has that peachy shade. Angie's palette doesn't have that, but Angie's palette has this shade. This shade, to me, looks like a combination of two shades I mixed from Angie's palette and the Christmas palette. This shade just looks like a shade from Angie's palette, but I did top it with another shade. I forgot that it was a duochrome and regretted it. And then this shade right here I just took from Angie's palette as fluorescent and put that in the inner corner, even though I don't think it's exact, but that's what I chose to do. So that's what we're working with. So I'm starting off with the shade Gingerbread, since that's what I started off with. In the where is it? That brush. You rolling me finally? No, in the crease. I did tap in a little bit of moss, but you can't tell that I did it, so kind of doesn't matter, especially since that's where I put the eyeliner. I put the eyeliner over where I put the green shade Underworld from Angie's palette, just because I felt like it wasn't giving that much of a pop. Plus, I just felt like being colorful and doing stuff I don't normally do, because I rarely use my colorful eyeliner. So I was in the mood to do it, so I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna try not to do it with the other one, at least in the crease. I might just go on the outer V with it. Or the winged liner for it to give it an extra pop with the look. But I was just like, I felt like using it, and it's rare that I do that with looks. So I figured we could switch it up in the last two like new palettes I'm trying, or last two eye looks I'm doing tonight. I still need to do a look with the Lavish palette, just to compare it to the other one to see if it works out. I feel like y'all don't really care though, because when I did the well, you don't need the Lavish palette video, nobody really cares that much. So I'm trying to debate if y'all want to see it, or if I should just skip it and make it like a short or a reel or something. Because I'm thinking about just doing that instead, since nobody really paid attention to the other video. Now we're gonna take the green out of the Christmas palette, and Christmas Day palette, and use the shade Christmas Trees. That's what I put on the outer V. It was darker, so the two greens, and it looked like the green in that palette is pretty dark, so I wanted to go with that. So now I'm not trying to shade this brand in any way by telling you to like use the stuff you already have. And my whole opinion is just like, if your brand already has two green palettes and I already own both of them, it would be stupid of me to buy a third one. I mean, I bought it for review purposes and for the people who didn't get an opportunity to get either one of the palettes I'm using, because I know there are some people who told me they missed out on the Christmas Eve and the Christmas Day palettes and they still upset. And then some people might not necessarily be a fan of Angie's and didn't want to support her and didn't buy her palette. So I mean, I understand those people want to get it. That's why I try to give you alternatives to things, because I feel like everybody has the Just My Luck palette, and I feel like it gives similar vibes to that, just not as many colors. So if you wanted the vibes, I try to give you alternatives, because at the end of the day, the prices and stuff are slowly going down, but sometimes they popping back up. Like gas was at $3.90 something. My mom texted me today and said it's like $4 something, so it's going back up. So I'm like, I'm just trying to give you alternatives and stuff. I'm not trying to shade these brands or tell you not to buy from brands. It's just, if you already have it, I feel like it makes more sense if you use what you have as opposed to you constantly going out and buying new stuff, especially in this type of economy. So that's why I do these videos. It's not because I'm like, you know what, screw you brand, I don't like this brand, or I'm upset with this brand. That's why I'm doing it. It's just more of, you know, I'm trying to save coins, girl. Now we're dipping in the Angie's palette in the shade Underworld, and that's just going in the crease. Now I told y'all, we end up putting the eyeliner on top of this, but you can still see it on the back of the eye right here, so that's why I'm gonna just go ahead and put it on. Dust it over real quick and keep like, and then kind of take it into the crease a little bit. I'm not going to do it too much because obviously that liner is really thick and it's going into the crease anyways. I don't feel the need to do that. My camera's about to die any minute because my battery is trying to die. I swear y'all, I've seen like either the battery's trying to die, a shade is trying to pop out of a palette, or I'm forgetting to bring a palette with me. It's driving me insane, I swear. Anyway, this is what we're working with so far. I'm probably just gonna let the battery die and then I'll go get another one. And then I'll like do the eyeliner off camera to save us some time, and the glitter glue, cause you know, it's gonna take a lot, but yeah, so far this is what we're working with. I'm gonna dust around here as usual. And then make sure everything's secure. Well, since it's not dying, I'm gonna turn it off and then I'll put the glitter glue on the lid and do the eyeliner later, but I'll be right back. Okay, y'all, so we got the glitter glue on while I went to go get the new battery. So let's get into the colors I use. So I started off with this one on the outer V, and then I blended this shade on top, and then I put this on the lid and put this shade on top, but I forgot it was dual chrome, so that's why it has that extra effect going on. And then I just put the shade fluorescent in the inner corner, and that's how we're gonna round off this first look before we get into the what is it, Dollhouse palette from Blend Bunny Cosmetics. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with that darker shade I just showed y'all called Jingle Bells. Let's get into that. To me, this seems a little bit more topper-esque just because I feel like it wasn't sticking on as well as I thought it would with the glitter glue. But it's been a while since I used this palette because, like I told y'all before, I try not to use palettes you couldn't necessarily get your hands on in a limited edition because I don't want to hear about it. I don't want nobody to get mad at me because they didn't give me a chance to get something. So a lot of times I'll just like not tag what I use in an Instagram post when I do feel like using or something. But a lot of times I try to use the newest stuff I have because I'm assuming that's what you're expecting to see. So a lot of stuff. Like for the longest time I didn't use my Morte palette, even though, you know, I had it and loved it, but I was like, I don't want to hear about it. Anyway, next let's go into the shade Golden Bridge. That's what I'm gonna put on top of this one. So work it on around, work. Now we're gonna flip over the brush and start off with the shade Venom from Angie's palette. So that's the brightest green in the palette. And it started off looking all nice and bright, but then I put like shifting shade on top of it. And then I turned around and put Venom on top of the shifting shade, hoping to bring a little bit of it back, but I feel like it didn't do that good a job because it has such a strong shift into that shade, so it was hard for it to overcome the shift of the shade. So I just kind of ended up, you know, with a shifting lid that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but you know, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I just went with it, it's okay. So now we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna put the shade Venom. I mean not Venom, was it Elf Wish on top of this one to get that crazy iridescent shift that you see on the lid on the other side. Cause y'all know you do the one side, you gotta do the other one, y'all. So I'm putting Elf Wish on now. This was giving that extra dual chrome vibe to it. And then we're gonna take Venom and put it back on top of there, hoping to bring a little bit of it back, but it doesn't bring too much of it back because, like I said, it shifts so much till you don't really see Venom anymore. You just see the other one. And as you can see, you don't really see the green in my crease either. I mean, you see it a little bit, but it's not as pronounced as it was before we put on all the shimmers. Now, y'all know me. Y'all gotta kind of blend and airbrush the outer V together so that way it looks, you know, more blended than did in the past. And we added the glitter glue and all the shimmers. That's what we're doing. Sorry, I hope I wasn't blurry for too long. Because I guess I can't keep moving the brush in my head. So look in the mirror and make sure everything looks the way I want it to and that you all see what's going on while I'm doing it. So sorry about that. Dust on me here as usual. Then I'll put some more green back on top. I don't know why though, because it's not like I'm finna go and, you know, put eyeliner over it. But I guess the aesthetic for the video, I want something to be seen because the eyeliner isn't going to be seen on camera. I'm gonna take my pictures off camera after I get done with this, and then we're gonna move into the Dollhouse palette. Well, yeah. Just trying to make it all look the way I expected this look toward the end. And we're gonna go into the inner corner now. I've done all that with the shade Fluorescent from Angie's palette. So. And this is the finished eye look. I'll show this eye because it looks cooler. This is what we're working with, girl. So I'm gonna go take my look at me. I think of sexy pictures. Then we're gonna come back and knock out an eye look with this Dollhouse palette from Buddy Cosmetics. I'll be right back, girl. Okay? Okay. Last eye look, y'all, I was real extra on the eyeliner, so I hope it didn't come off with too much. But I was trying to, like I said, I've been trying to get something different these last 2 or 3 eye looks I'm doing tonight. So hope you enjoyed it, girl. So I took the shade Toolie here in the inner corner. I dipped these 2 shades together and put them in the crease. I took the purple right here and put that on outer V. I put this on the lid, and this is our crease shade. So that's the shade I started off with. Dust over everything. So I'm gonna start off with the shade Hold Me. That's the lavender lilac-ish looking purple I showed y'all start off with. I feel like it gave a nice little soft wash to the eye look, but it didn't blend into it. I was trying to make it stand out a little bit, and that's some of the colors that come in the palette. If y'all remember, probably should have showed it before I started dusting it off. But girl, it's like almost 3 in the morning, so I'm ready to go home. I didn't get over here till like 12:30, and then I ate before I started. Cause I ain't gonna be trying to eat at like 2 and 3 in the morning. I'd rather eat it like 11:30, 12. Not that that's like a whole lot better, but that's the time I got out here. So I was like, I will eat when I got out here and film, then take my happy self home. So when the process of taking our happy self home, y'all can tell, cause I actually got a color on the lower lash line, and y'all know I don't do color on the lower lash line unless it's the last eye look of the day. And lately I haven't even been doing it for the last eye look of the day, because I know I'm gonna come back and film other eye looks. Like I knew it was the palette in my house, I just didn't know it was the what do you call that palette? The Seahorse from Depth, which I was excited about. Now I'm gonna take the shade Cinched. Did I use it? Cinched. It's cinched, sorry. And just, I'm sorry, I think the other one was like a racial slur towards Asian people. My apology. And an Asian island Pacific Rim month. How dare I? I'm so sorry. But I'm pretty sure it's cinched. So we're going. Yeah, so I'm gonna dust this on our here in the IV. And I love this shade. I think it's a gorgeous shade. And to me, this palette is definitely a good alternative to the Jewels and Jewels and Gems palette, just because, you know, it gives you so much more variety of different colors that palette has. Like I said, it doesn't have the blue, but it literally has everything else. So I'm like, I feel like you should be fine having everything else. And it even gives you a blue. It's just like a shimmery blue. It's not like a matte blue. And the shimmery blue in here does not match the one in the palette. So I should probably show you our palette so you see what I'm talking about. I know it doesn't, but it's like, you know, I was working with what I had. See what I'm saying? Like, the blue in this palette is a darker blue. I'm sorry, so you can see right there, that dark shimmery blue. It's somewhere in this area here. It's not like the shade I chose, but that was the shade I had to work with in this palette. Oh yeah, this one right here. I was talking about that shade right there where my finger is. Yeah, that one was a it's a dark navy-ish looking shimmer shade. From what I can see in the picture's a little blurry though, so you know, working what I got, girl. But yeah, so I started with that one. Now I'm digging back and forth with the shade Rogue and Baby Doll to get the pink I have in the crease that you don't see, because I end up covering it up with eyeliner once more. But you know, I was like, I'm gonna start off with the shade even if it doesn't, and then finish with the shade. I was just trying to do some fun, unique things for these eye looks, and hopefully you think it's fun and unique, because that was the whole goal. I mean, I did the same format, but it's like I spiced it up with colorful eyeliners from JD Glow, because that's where these are from. It's just, don't expect to be able to use the brush tips with these. If you're going to use these, you're going to need to have an eyeliner brush to use, because the tips horribly. They'll make your wings way bigger than you want them to be. Like the front of this one is much bigger than I expected it or wanted it to be, but because the brush was so raggedy, I didn't have any choice. I only have a couple of eyeliner brushes here. I don't have enough to like do 2 or 3. Thank goodness the other 2 were still okay, so I didn't have to worry about it with that. But honey, I was like, look here, no. So this is pretty much what we're working with. Let me put some glitter glue real quick. I don't feel like pressing the button for the glitter glue, so I'm just gonna do it on camera this one time. I'm telling y'all, I'm trying to get out of here and go home because I still need to shower and get ready for bed, and I gotta go to work tomorrow. I'm gonna have to get up early to take my comparison pictures for the new Adept palette to go on Instagram, my little reel or whatever, to compare the palettes to, because you know I want that to go up. Now we're gonna take the shade Glass Eyes. That's the name of the blue shade in this palette. I noticed that it's hard for me to pick this up on a brush, I have noticed, but it's a pretty shade. It's just be prepared to work to get it out of the pan. It might work better with your fingers, but I'm not a girl who likes to use her fingers, so I just have to go in with the brush for a good amount of time to get a good amount of pickup on the pan. I mean on the brush, in order to put it on the eye. It's definitely a light wash of color compared to, you know, other blues in my collection, but I mean that can be okay if you like a light wash of color. I'm not necessarily a crazy fan of it, but it could just be the brush I'm picking it up on too. Because it's synthetic hair, it's not natural hair. It might do better on natural hair. It's been so long since I used this shade in the palette, so I forgot, but y'all know I love blues and I want to make sure I incorporate the blue into this eye look, so that's why I made sure I picked this shade, even though I knew it didn't necessarily match the aesthetic of what's going on. You know, wanted to make sure I did that. Y'all know the drill. I'm gonna go back in with a little bit of the purple just to blend over everything, make everything look nice and smooth and airbrushed, and like it blends together and looks like it belongs together extremely well. So that's what I'm doing right now. Just, you know, just take my purple and blend it up a bit. My son didn't want to go to his 8th grade dance, and so he didn't. And then like he talked about how he regretted the next morning when he woke up and saw all his little friends on Snapchat, and I guess like they looked like they were having fun. It's like I didn't try to force him. I just figured, you know, like if he didn't want to go, then don't go. It's not that big a deal. It's 8th grade. It's not like it's like junior or senior prom where, like, you know, because that seems to be a bigger deal to people. So I'm like, this is the 8th grade dance. If you don't want to go, okay, then don't go. Because he didn't go to the 5th grade dance either, and he was fine with that. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I'm gonna go into the shade Toolie now, which is on top of those 2 shades I mixed together that I showed you all in the beginning, and hook up the inner corner here. And this is our finished eye look in terms of this eye, since that's the one I fully did. I didn't put the mascara on yet, but you know, this is what we're working with. So I hope these videos helped you, and I hope seeing these looks inspired you to pull out these palettes as opposed to buying more palettes. Because girl, you got plenty of palettes, just use the ones you got. I will be doing a video when the palettes get to me, though, just so we can see how the colors worked out and how well of a job I did with my dupes versus the actual palettes. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. Remember, you all are diamonds. Comment down below and tell me if you agree with the palettes I chose as far as them looking similar, because I feel like a lot of the green palettes did look somewhat similar. If I had to pick some in particular, I would say the Just My Luck, the 2 we use in this video, and maybe the Gemini, because I feel like you can just use a single green bright shadow if you wanted that shimmery green shadow, and you already have the Gemini palette and you could get the look. As far as like a combined palette, I still think that the Whistler Snow Lodge is a good alternative for this palette as well. But comment down below and tell me your thoughts on what I picked out. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Remember, you all are diamonds, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Be blessed, girl. Bye.